Thank you, Sarah. Thanks everyone for joining. We will be here for the next 30 minutes. We're going to be telling you a lot of different information. We will save some time for questions at the end, and please do keep them coming as we go through the session. So my name is Lynn Jeffrey, and I am the director of IFTF's Foresight Essentials program. And that is the part of the Institute for the Future where we teach people how to develop their own professional foresight practice and how to think like a futurist. If you don't know already, Institute for the Future is a 50-plus-year-old nonprofit public interest organization. We are located in Palo Alto, California, and we have been, for the past 50-plus years, one of the world's leading independent futures groups. So we work with businesses, we work with universities, government agencies, with obviously corporations, all different kinds of communities, to really help people understand how the future might be different and how they might begin to build the futures that they want. And for about the past 6 or 7 years, we have been growing our whole portfolio of learning experiences in futures thinking and foresight. We have lots of different options, some for individuals, some for organizations. We have a growing global community of foresight practitioners who we meet with on a weekly basis, and it's really interesting, and we learn so much from you. And we have a lot of resources that we've put together every month to support people in their journeys to learn about foresight, the application of foresight in a professional context. But before we get into all the details of the specific offerings, I want to tell you a little bit about what it's like to take a course. Oops, the host has disabled screen sharing. So Joanne, you're going to need to make me the host, and we're going to see if I can get back to being the host and share my screen with all of you. Never a dull moment with Zoom. So whenever that's ready, Joanne, if you could do that, that would be wonderful. In the meantime, let me just tell you a little bit about what it's like to take a class with IFTF. All of our courses are still online. And Sarah, maybe you can help Joanne figure out how to do that. All of our classes are still online. We're hoping that in the very near future, that will change and we will be having in-person classes again. But for the time, we're still having a lot of fun with the online classes, and we've really optimized our learning to be able to make it a great experience. And one thing that distinguishes all of the learning experiences that we have at IFTF is that they're taught by experienced faculty and professional foresight practitioners like ourselves, who have practical experience working with all different kinds of stakeholders. We have people who are doing research on everything from the future of health and well-being to the future of retail to the future of democracy and media, all kinds of different things. And so we have a really diverse group of faculty who will be teaching you and bringing you through these. And we also have colleagues who will be taking the class with you from really diverse backgrounds all around the world, all working on real life practical foresight projects. So at the last class that I just finished, we had people from 10 different countries attending. We had people like someone who was an HR leader for a technology company who was based in Asia, who was working on the topic of the future of talent. We had an engineer at a materials science company who was working on the future of glass, a project to understand the future of glass. We had a senior administrator at a large European technical university who was trying to figure out how they would integrate foresight into the curriculum at the university. All right, I'm going to try to share my screen now. Okay, I've got it. And here we go. Let me get to where I want to be. So, and we had a PhD student who was working on transition design in Ireland. We had a researcher who was working on human rights in Afghanistan. So just a lot of diversity. And that's one of the really exciting things in any class that you take with IFTF. The other thing is that you're going to get to use really interesting kind of cutting edge learning tools and environments. So not only are we delivering the class online, but we're also experimenting with different formats and different collaboration platforms like Oyay, which you may not have heard of, and Miro and Mural, which you probably have heard of. And so we really like to use those and make that part of the class. And finally, we really focus on how to make the foresight actionable for you in your context. We have lots of support, lots of tools and frameworks. And so this is an example, as you see here, of one of the tools that we use in one of our classes that's called Design Your Practice. And it helps you take a step back and figure out what are all the different choices and elements that you'll need to consider when you are designing a professional foresight practice. All of our classes end with a certificate of completion, and we have all kinds of learning resources, foresight learning resources, webinars. We have a Futures Buddy match. We have monthly meetups, which are exclusive just for our alumni. We have a monthly newsletter. And I'm going to turn it over to Sarah now to give us kind of a tour through some couple of different parts of our overall training portfolio.
Absolutely. Thank you, Lynn. And exactly, we have a lot of different things, as you can see here before you, on offer, which means that we have something for everyone. So I want to talk you through an array of the courses that we have. Lynn, if you maybe could head over to the next one. We're going to start with IFTF Foresight Essentials, which is really our flagship class. And what it tries to do in this class, and what it does, is it equips you with the foundational knowledge you need to be a foresight practitioner. And that's if you have prior experience with foresight, or if you're starting just from the beginning. If you want to click to the next slide, a lot of what we cover, it goes through our prepare, foresight, insight, action process. We really cover the building blocks of the skills for strategic foresight. Really helping people think about how do you not just find, but interpret signals and drivers of change, the new types of evidence that you might have for the future. How do you use that to construct new forecasts about the way things might happen in the world, the many possible futures that are out there? And then how do we take that, bring it down to earth, to us, and start using that to create insight and move on to action? Because there's no point in thinking about the future unless we think about action, right? This is a course that happens over the course of 6 different sessions. They're 4 hours with ample breaks, 22 hours of class, and then 10 hours of homework between sessions over the course of the class. So we really have you engaged in class, out of class, and that's with the amazing array of colleagues that Lynn just talked about, the real diversity of colleagues. You get a chance to interact with them. You're interacting with IFTF expert faculty, one of really the flagship and cornerstones for us of our work is that we also have all of the people who are practicing and teaching you are also practicing foresight practitioners. So they are there and you have chances to engage with them. Lynn, if you want to head to the next one, over the course of the class, you will be exposed to all 22 tools in the IFTF Foresight Essentials Toolkit. So really exciting. Some you'll use extensively, some you'll just touch on. And all of this will be, again, through individual exploration, through working with your peers, through work with IFTF faculty. And then also towards the end, we don't want to just dump you 22 tools, right? What you're doing is thinking about how do we apply it? So you have 30 minutes of office hours directly with an IFTF faculty member, and you're coming up with a plan for how do we take this and put that and make that into the next step? How do we bring it back to our organizations as an actionable next step? So that is Foresight Essentials. And now on to Design Futures. Design Futures is a really wonderful offering that we have. And it helps you think about the immersive world of futures as it exists. We're trying to talk to people about an entirely new atmosphere. So how do you start to design those experiences, unlock emotional connections that come with futures thinking? So it will teach you how to take an audience through a trip through time, right? How do you take futures thinking or some foresight that you've designed and start to make it a full-bodied experience? So you learn through hands-on methodologies, again, similar to our last class as well. Really seasoned IFTF practitioners will be teaching the class. Get to know amazing people from around the world. It takes place over 5 sessions and 17 hours. And then you have a project that you're actually working with other colleagues from around the world on as you go through. You start to think about what are some experiential futures we might create and really start to get your hands dirty in seeing how these might play out in the real world. And Lynn, if you want to head to the next one, they have a toolkit with 8 tools. So with 8 tools, 17 hours, it's a lot more deep dive into each of these tools and that practice of how do we start using that? How do we play around with it? And how do we build out that, that additional toolkit in our foresight practice to make sure that we're making these emotional connections? How do we communicate futures? After that is IFTF scenario building. This is a course that we kicked off last year because so many people, obviously there are a lot of things up in the air, continue to be up in the air, and there's no one future direction that we will take. A lot of people are already working with scenarios in their organizations, trying to consider different possibilities. And what we do in this class is we introduce and do a really deep dive, granular intake and insight into Jim Dator at the University of Hawaii at Manoa, his foresight methodology of alternative future scenarios. And throughout the class, it's really fun. It's really intensive. This is definitely a level 2 class. You know, you have some knowledge of foresight already, and you get together with people around the world and you get in there and you are building out 4 distinct scenarios. I am just coming off. We have another class coming up at the end of this upcoming month. It's going to be really fun, interactive, get you into the nitty-gritty of the types of conversations that you need to have when building out different alternative futures and how to get your scenario practice going. So this one happens over 5 sessions, 16 hours of classwork, and then you also do an hour in between each class. Then this is our final section is our, what we sort of like to call our general interest course. And these are the courses that we have available on Coursera. If you want to step up to the next one, we have 2 major courses on Coursera. And this is actually a specialization on Coursera. This is IFTF Futures Thinking on Coursera. It's a set of 5 different courses that are all self-paced. So this is different from the other ones. The other ones you take with a live instructor, live cohort of colleagues. This one you do on your own time, and there's a whopping 45 hours of video instruction and related content that you can dive into. It really can give you a starting view into what is foresight. Where is it going from? I saw somebody on this call also has already taken the Coursera class. We find a lot of people like dabbling in this before heading to our IFTF Foresight Essentials class. It's totally not necessary, but there are a lot of ways for different interaction and all the wonderful things that Coursera provides you. And then we also have, and this is a little bit more looking at personal futures. This is IFTF Life After COVID-19, Get Ready for Our Post-Pandemic, meaning since the pandemic arrived, future. And so this is just one class. That being said, there's a ton of classes, content in there, really exploring how do you think about what you're aiming for, how that differs from your life that happened before, and how do you build up that confidence in this new, potentially unknown to you before world? So that is sort of our general interest set of things, plus one that is not on Coursera. So this is IFTF Fast Futures, not on Coursera. And this is switching back to, this is a live in person. You're going to have one main instructor in front of you, 90 minutes, $99. And it's a really basic intro to foresight practices. We find people like to do it sometimes to just get themselves started. If you're trying to get other people interested in futures, it's a nice, quick sort of exposure. You don't need to do all the heavy lifting of explaining what is it good for, and it really gives you a clearer sense of the skill set and where that takes you. You'll be having live instructor interaction as you go along. So Lynn, back over to you, because we can take all of these amazing things and make them even more customized.
Yes, so these classes that we just explained are all for individuals. And then we also have our custom classes, which we design for you, your team, and your organization. And these are really classes that help you build foresight capacity at the organizational level. Often we're looking at foresight for leadership development. People are using these to identify emerging challenges and opportunities within a particular organization. It could be a nonprofit, it could be a philanthropy, it could be a university, it could be a company, really any kind of organization. And what we do here is we take a subset of tools from the different classes that we've already shared with you, and we design a specific program for your needs, depending on how much time you have, how many people you have, and we do those both in person and online. And just to give you a couple of examples of the kinds of recent custom trainings that we've done, we did a FutureBack Leadership Accelerator, which is a combination of kind of developing an innovation process to develop new business ideas or new service ideas, plus leadership development. We did that recently for a global manufacturing company. We did a kind of introduction to and raising foresight awareness for a board of trustees at a university. Something that we often do is come in and work with a board of an organization and give them a quick kind of deep dive into futures thinking. We do also introduction to foresight training for grantees at nonprofit foundations and private philanthropies. We've been doing a lot of work to help people develop strategic initiatives, to learn how to do that with a long-term point of view. And when we say long-term at IFTF, we're generally talking about 10 years in the future. That's generally the time frame that we're working with when we're doing foresight training and futures thinking. And then we also work with a lot of HR and learning and development folks to help their leaders be more prepared for what's coming around the corner. So that's a whirlwind tour through some of the work that we do at IFTF. And I want to just remind you again in kind of a summary. We have on the left courses for individuals. We have Foresight Essentials, which is the flagship class. It's really the class that is trying to, if you are a professional and you want to add futures to your portfolio, Foresight Essentials is the place to start. If you are already in a foresight role and you want to kind of have a refresher course, or you want to get a really comprehensive set of tools, it's also a great place. We often have people who have had a lot of experience taking that class. It's just the kind of class that if you want to kind of be equipped with a comprehensive set of methods and frameworks and ways to talk about futures and ways to bring that to your organization, that's the class to take. Design futures and scenario building are a little bit more advanced, as Sarah said, and those are taking a deeper dive into design futures to communicate futures, to bring futures content to life, and scenario building, of course, to build for future scenarios. And then the Coursera classes, which are, as Sarah said, self-paced and self-guided online. And finally, our custom trainings, which can really be anything that you would like. So just to give you a sense of what the costs are for some of these, the Foresight Essentials is $6,000 standard. That would be for a corporation, $4,000 for a nonprofit. Design Futures and Scenario Building are both $3,500 or $3,000. We do have discounts that we often give for people. So if you are stretched with some of these, let us know, because we are pretty flexible. Futures Thinking, the Coursera classes are $49 a month. If you want to complete the specialization and get a certificate from Coursera, and then the custom trainings are really starting at around $8,000, $9,000, all the way up to a much more robust set of trainings for a large group of people. I want to pause. We're gonna stop for questions in a moment, but we wanted to share one of the most recent things that we actually launched today. It is World Futures Day, so happy World Futures Day. Today we launched our first ever individual membership program. And this is a group called Urgent Optimists. It's an online community. It's facilitated by Jane McGonigal and a bunch of our colleagues at IFTF. And it's really a place for people to meet, to do some collective forecasting with scenarios, to play some forecasting games, and to really build the habits of optimism. There are some short courses on the platform, which are about the neuroscience of futures thinking. And this community is $99 a year or $10 a month. And we already have hundreds of people who've signed up from all over the world. Would love to see you there. If you're interested, you can learn more about the community, which is based on Jane's newest book coming out at the end of the month. The book is called Imaginable: How to Be Fearless in Realizing a World with Possibilities. And that will be tomorrow morning, Wednesday, March 2nd at 10 a.m. California time. So please do join us if you want to learn more about that. Just quickly, a few dates. We have a class beginning this week, Foresight Essentials. We have another one in June, which is optimized for the Asia Pacific time zone. So it'll be right around now. And then we have our Fast Futures, that 90 minutes, $99. That's on April 20th. Scenario Building will start at the end of March, and Design Futures in May. So that is it for what we have in our formal presentation. And see if we have any questions. Joanne, I didn't know if there were questions that I see. Okay, so I see a couple of questions. When will you return to in-person trainings? We don't make predictions at the Institute for the Future. It's one of the very first things that we teach. But we right now are optimistic, and we're planning it in July in California. We're planning an in-person class. We're also planning an in-person class in Munich in October. So that's when we're doing, and we are starting to do in-person trainings, custom trainings as well.
Yes, July will be in Palo Alto, California at our offices.
Thank you. And Sarah, do you want to take the next question? What's the difference between in-person and live online format?
Yeah, I really love both of the formats, actually, and they both have really different advantages that you get from them. In-person is super intensive, 3 days, your head's down in it, just going quickly through all of the tools, but you're able to be 100% focused in there and where you are. You'll be with a cohort of other people who will also be physically there. The digital one, you're going to get a chance to learn, first of all, a lot about digital facilitation is sort of this plus that you get out of it. You're seeing how you can use these tools online if you plan on doing it. And then the really great thing about online as well is that you're able to take these things that you learn and actually start putting them into practice in your day-to-day, practice talking to a colleague about it, and then coming back and sharing your experience. We have people who have taken a tool, used it in a workshop they're running on an off day, and then coming back to share the experience. And so it's a way to really build up a little bit more of that habit, right? A rhythm of coming back and revisiting something as you go along. All of them, I mean, it's a little bit, I think particularly now, you're going to get a much more international group for the virtual ones. We used to have very international for in-person, but I think that that's going to take a little bit to rustle up. So yeah, that's the difference.
I see we have a question about the difference between Foresight Essentials flagship course and the Coursera Futures Thinking course, which is a great question. I think the main difference is the Futures Thinking course on Coursera is a general interest futures thinking course. It is absolutely wonderful, and many professionals have taken it, but it's not focused on you developing a professional practice in a professional context. It's also self-paced and self-guided, so you won't have any direct contact with live teachers or with other students, although I think Coursera does have a way for you to meet other learners. The Foresight Essentials is a group of 25 to 30 people from around the world. You're going to spend a solid month, 5 or 6 weeks even, really immersed in learning the tools and learning how to talk about them, learning how to facilitate them, doing them hands-on, and then getting really direct feedback, as well as lots and lots of discussion about how do I create momentum inside my organization? What kind of a workshop might I design? And you're also going to have an applied futures project that you will end the Foresight Essentials class with a detailed plan that you'll go on to execute afterwards. So I think that's, Sarah, anything else that I've missed there that you think is a key difference?
No, I think that's great. I believe you mentioned the office hours in there. Just that you get at Foresight Essentials, the 30 minutes of office hours, which is really, people find really, really useful with IFTF faculty.
Yeah. And then we had a final question. Do you have special rates for startups? Which we don't have special rates for startups, but we would love to talk if you would like to just get in touch with Cindy Baskin, who I think is on this call. Cindy, if you can put your email in there, Cindy would be the person to talk to about that. I think that is it. Sarah, there was one question, someone who wanted to talk to you afterwards, but we have 1 minute left, so we'll let the rest of the folks go. Please do join if you're interested and you just want to taste. You can even join the Urgent Optimist community for $10 a month, or attend the Fast Futures session. Certainly, please do join us for our tons and tons of webinars, or sign up for our Foresight Essentials newsletter, which you can do on our homepage on our iftf.org website, and just get involved. We have a lot of people doing a lot of really interesting things. Thank you so much.
Thank you all for joining. Really interesting and exciting to see where you're all coming from. So looking forward to continuing the conversation.
Yes. Definitely looking forward to continue. I'm going to put my email in here. I think we went by everything else really quickly here. There's mine. I think basically anyone at IFTF, it's the first initial of their first name and then their last name at iftf.org. So anyone that you want to get in touch with, you can. Thank you so much again. Please do stick around if you have further questions and want to chat. Otherwise, have a wonderful evening or morning, wherever you are and whatever part of the world you're at. Thank you.